Oh, man, if y'all could see us off camera, I tell you what, no matter what podcast you're on, if you can see what goes on before that record button is ever hit, that's probably the best stuff if somebody would ever hide. That's how they got Si, I think, wasn't it, Todd? He didn't know the camera was on him, because when the camera was on him, he got shy. When they figured out what he would do offside. Anyway, we're Big Duck Dynasty guys. So anyway, hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Fortitude. Man, have we got a very special guest. And I found out about this young man through my oldest son, Richie, who is a JTAC in the Air Force. Richie actually served with Austyn's dad at Fort Benning. They didn't work together. They were in different units. They were in the same building, but they were in different units. They didn't serve together. Both JTACs, a very tight community. Anyway, we'll let Austyn talk about what happened with his dad, Joshua. Austyn Gavulic.
Yes,
And he said we can call him Garlic. He didn't care. Anyway, Austyn, the only thing I do want you to make sure, I'm going to turn this over to Todd. Just make sure you tell us how old you are. But, hey, listen, everybody, I'm turning this over to Todd. Todd's going to take this one and get us started this evening. But thanks, everybody, for joining in.
Hey, thanks, everybody. So we got Austyn with us today, and a lot similar to the way I've kind of gotten in a routine is what I would do in pointing you any direction is just go from the start. Tell us where you were born, when you were born, and then just move through from there. As deep as you want to go, as comfortable as you're willing to talk about. And as we come up with questions, we'll just pop in the questions as we go.
All right, sounds good. So let's start now? All right, cool.
Yeah.
So hi, I'm Austyn Gavulic. I was born in Columbus, Georgia in 2006, August 1st, if you want to be exact, on Fort Benning military base. My mom and my dad met when they were young, like 17, 18 years old. Funny story how they met, actually. They were at a rave, and my dad was breakdancing and elbowed her on the face because his buddy was trying to record him dancing, and that's how they met.
Hey, I never heard of breaking the ice by elbowing someone in the butt, but your lady in the face. But if it works, man.
Oh yeah, they were together for 15 years, so I guess like maybe that's the method. And yeah, so they ended up having my older sister, when they were like 18, 19, and they got together and they fell in love and they made it work. My dad joined the military when he was had just turned 18, and he stayed in for the rest of his life. For the majority of my life, it was pretty normal growing up. My mom's side of the family has always been very chaotic in the past. They long line of addiction and drug abuse and substances and just really dysfunctional relationships all throughout it. And my dad's side was a little bit more distant. They live in Alaska. Lovely people, but, a little far away. So yeah, then everything was fine. I had 6 siblings, or I am the third of 6,
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it goes my sister, my older brother, me, my little brother, little sister. So as a middle child, I ended up being a little bit more rambunctious than other kids. I'm like the first kid to break my arm, stuff like that. But yeah, so when I was about 7.5 years old on February 14th, 2014, February 21st, 2014, my father passed away in a parachute training accident, and I believe it was Halo or Yuma, Arizona. Long story short, there was a malfunction with his gear, and it ended up sucking him out of the plane, and he snapped his neck, and it was over quick, but he died. So after that, our family, we got swarmed by love from friends and family and other members of the community. The TACP and the JTAC community really do hold together, and they hold their own, and they helped us recover from that, financially, and they gave support, and through that, I was blessed with a bunch of really, really cool opportunities. I was able to go to different camps and stuff. Like I've been able to go to Colorado and go to camps there to learn how to hike and, tie knots and other stuff like that you're supposed to do with your dad. I was able to go hunting for the first time through another camp, through Soldier's Child and, Gold Star hunts, stuff like that. So that gave me a lot of really, really cool. I actually learned how to scuba dive through this group called GSTA, or Gold Star Teen Adventures. So after that, I was classified as a Gold Star child, and with a lot of siblings, things got really, really hectic. So fast forward about 11 months, right? My uncle had been living with us, and he was a former addict, but he and my grandmother were living with us, and things in the house were a little bit contentious at the time, but overall not terrible. But then, few months after they had left, my youngest sister Lila had passed away in a drowning incident. She was about 2.5 at the time. My dad's old JTAC buddies were coming over. They were helping out because we had 5 acres of land in Columbus, Georgia, and a bunch of little kids. So normally Dad would help us with the yard work, and he'd teach us how to do the different things. So they came over just to do the yard for us one day and help out. Through some freak accident, somehow my youngest sister Lila ended up getting out of the house and fell face first in the pool and drowned. And that wrecked my mom and my family, and it was a really, really big deal. I was the oldest child at the house on that day. So my older brother and older sister, they were off there hanging out with their friends that day, as any normal 15-year-old, 13-year-old would. And I was home. I was watching Curious George with my younger siblings. And my mom came in to put her shoes up and use the restroom. And she was like, "Hey, watch your siblings real quick. I'm going to go, take care of some business. I'll be right back out." And then, not even 5 minutes had gone by. She comes outside and she looks through the Jack and Jill doors, the windows, and just starts, yelling and cursing, and runs out the door. And when I run out, I see a small pink body floating in the pool. After which I called 911 while she was trying to help her get out of the pool and stuff. The ambulance showed up. They shocked her 3 times or something like that, and they weren't able to bring her back. So yeah, and that made because of that, I harbored a lot of guilt and kind of resentment for myself for that, because even though I was 8 years old, I still felt responsible for it as the older brother. I still carried a lot of that weight on me as someone who was supposed to have, been there to watch and protect, and who should have been vigilant, and who should have been, watching what was going on instead of just watching Curious George. Yeah. So after that, we ended up moving from Georgia to Florida, which is where my dad would have been stationed, is here at Eglin Air Force Base, because he was a few years away, maybe a little bit less, from transitioning from doing a lot of field work to more desk work. He would have stopped going on combat missions, and he would have stayed here at Eglin and organized things and ran training and wrote more reports, stuff like that. So that's really unfortunate. He was just about to start settling down with his career. He was in the final stretch before retirement. So we ended up moving to the town we would have moved to. So we moved here when I'm around 9, and my mom ends up getting in a really, really dysfunctional relationship. I won't say his name because I don't want to.
That's cool.
No, we're good.
I'm not trying to call anyone out or anything, but he was raging narcissist, just overall not a very good person. And he kind of emotionally took advantage of her right after the death of, her husband and youngest daughter. You know?
That happens.
And he was very, very verbally and emotionally abusive. He was smart, so he never physically put hands on us, but that didn't stop him from making our life a living hell and completely controlling everyone's life. And I, of course, was his least favorite because I have a mouth on me and I don't like people yelling at my mom, which made me a target, which meant I got more crap done. And so that wasn't great, but it is what it is. In a way, it showed me a lot more it gave me a more critical lens for judging people, and it caused me to evaluate relationships, and it solidified in me the idea of a distant or malicious God, right? Because as men, oftentimes we judge our view of God, or we build our view of God based off of our father figures. He's our heavenly father for me. My heavenly father was great, or my earthly father was great, super loving, super kind, but also deployed more months out of the year than he wasn't, or on mission, or on training, or TDYs, or whatever.
Austyn, we'll pick up. So remember where you are right now. Your mind's a lot better than mine and Todd's. Richie told me that your dad was a devout Christian, that he was that everybody respected him and knew that he was a very devout Christian man. Your mom and dad, were you all raised in? Did your mom go to Liberty?
Yeah, she did go to Liberty University.
That's what I thought I saw on her profile. Everybody, listen, I wasn't stalking her. She sent me a friend request, so calm down, everybody. I just wonder what you remember of 8 years old. I know, man, whenever I was 8 years old, which I'm 60, now. I mean, remember when I'm 8 years old, almost. Todd, stop laughing at me, Todd.
You gotta look farther back than I do.
So I was just wondering what you remember about your home while when your dad was alive and he was there. Were you all going to church? Was it a Christian focused? And just so you know, your mom, what'd you say her name is?
Alyssa.
Melissa.
Alyssa. No,
Alyssa. I'm going to put that on here. Alyssa, if you're listening, Austyn has my contact information. If you are interested in being a guest on this podcast, you have an open invitation.
Her testimony is different from mine, but there's a lot of same
I would
things
love to hear it. So just tell us a little bit what you remember about your what it was like at home with your dad before the accident.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to go into a lot about your mom after the accident and stuff, because we'll get her story from her. But I'm just curious of because you're getting ready to go into your story. You mentioned God and because I know that you told me you rebelled at a certain point, which we all did as a teenager, brother. You're not alone. I got bad news. You're not the first to do it, and you ain't going to be the last. You're looking at two right here. So just kind of talk about that and then go into where you were in your story. But I just want to kind of get an idea of what your childhood was like when your dad was at home.
Yeah, it was good. Like, it was great. As far as I remember, I had a really loving father, and we had a Christian household. We went to church, every Sunday and every Wednesday, and we were very involved and plugged into youth groups and stuff. I remember being in like 4th grade and trying out for the little like mini worship team of a bunch of, middle schoolers, stuff like that. So it was great. We had a great community and a lot of really good people surrounding us. My mom, she was Christian. She was a stay-at-home mother. She made sure to watch us, and we were her top priority, and while she was watching us, she was, pursuing school, getting her getting her clinical degree for like counseling and being a trauma specialist. But she always said that she got her degree between the times of 8 and midnight because she was watching us all the time. After we went to bed, then it was time to study, So life at home was really, really good, especially with having a bunch of siblings. There's always someone to hang out with and talk to. When I was younger, my dad and my older brother were like my idols, and my little brother was my best friend. We were like 19 months apart. We did everything together. 5 acres of land, and would run around and go jump and play in the woods and run down fields. I remember we ended up raising chickens and pigs and geese on those few acres, just because my dad wanted to do it. And to make sure that we wouldn't get attached to the pigs, my dad named it Hickory, Smoky, Savory, and Barbie. So
yep.
They were delicious.
Absolutely.
And life at home was great, honestly. Naturally there's little spats, little fights and arguments here and there. I remember my mom dropping us off at daycare so she can go, to the IMCA and, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. It was great. It taught me how to socialize with people other than my own flesh and blood.
That's right.
So, they were active members of the church and stuff. My dad, one thing I've heard a lot about him, especially in his later years in life, was that, and this is how my mom has said it, is that it was like he knew that his time was coming up soon. Like something in him that's the way she's described to me, is that there's something in him that just knew, like, all right, time is short. And from what I hear, the last 4 or 5 years of his life, he had a relationship with God before that, and he had, talked to him, but that was when he really developed a close, intimate, loving relationship with God being an active, vivid part of his life. So, which I think is really, really cool, and which has helped me a lot, because that's so foundational for any kid to see a role model who is actively in the Word, actively praying, actively choosing to live a biblical lifestyle, choosing to be the kind of father God tells you to be rather than what we think we should be, So, and my mom joined him on that journey as well, but as it's been described to me, he just kind of knew that his time was coming to a close, or that something was happening soon. So he really locked in on that.
So real quick, for everybody, if you're driving down the road and you're not very good at math like me, I just want everybody to know that Austyn is 18 years old. You're not listening to a 20-some, 30-some-year-old young man. You're listening to an 18-year-old young man that has experienced all this in his life already. Go ahead, Austyn.
Yeah. Do you want me to jump on to?
Yeah, now go into where you were. Now roll back into where you were. Your grandparent or your uncle and your grandmother had been there, and now they had left, and so pick back up where you were there.
So yeah, she ends up getting in this really bad relationship after we moved to Florida, and my grandma moves back in with us while we're in Florida, right? And while we're in Florida, roughly 6 months after my youngest sister passed away, my uncle, the one who had been living with us for a period of time, ended up committing suicide while he was on a come down for methamphetamines.
Holy cow.
So he had a long-term struggle with substance abuse, as well as many, many other members of my mom's family and just extended family. And so I can't say what the reasons are, but it appears that there have been a lot of things that had compounded and built up, especially with the recent losses and deaths. And survivor's guilt can be one hell of a thing, especially if you're addicted, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So while that was happening, I actually didn't know it happened until after the funeral was already over. So I went to my dad's funeral and my sister's funeral, but my mom left us at home with a family friend to watch us for a bit. And when she came back, we were like, oh, where were you? And she's like, oh, I was at, Mitch's funeral. And she's like, oh, why didn't we get to go? And her response to me, and I don't know why I always remember this, is like, well, I feel like you've been to enough of them already. And which was great. Her way of trying to shield us from that, even in a state of still being broken and battered and recovering from so many things going on. And my mom is not a perfect woman. She is an amazing, fantastic woman. She loves God, loves Jesus, has a great relationship with him. I have nothing but praises for her. But also it's been a process to get there,
Oh, guaranteed, bro.
But even in that time of brokenness brokenness is really the best word to say it. She still always loved us, and we were still always one of her priorities. It's just the way in which she sought to protect us wasn't always what we needed in that moment, right? Because the father, the breadwinner, was gone, she felt that she needed to be the provider. So her main pursuit became school and work. So she worked all the time, and she was constantly working at school and getting her PhD, which she ended up getting her PhD while with the first boyfriend. So she has a PhD in traumatology. I don't want to butcher the exact thing. She has a lot of letters behind her name.
Good enough. I'm good with you, Austyn. That's good.
Well,
any more than that, you're over our head anyway.
And and that was how one of the ways she sought to protect us and provide that security for us, which I'm still very, very grateful for. So yeah, roughly, I think it was about a year. So, let me make sure I got my timeline straight. The relationship with the first boyfriend lasted about 2 years, roughly, and it ended on bad terms. Turns out I actually was the one that found out about his affair that he was having, even if it wasn't super, he hid it kind of, but, so he had been dating this other woman under the table, and I remember talking to this guy I knew at school, and I mentioned his name, and he's like, oh, that's my mom's boyfriend. I was like, okay. And I didn't find out until after they had broken up, because he was making big shows of things, getting angry, finding any excuse he could to leave. And this is probably three or 4 months after they broke up. And I was talking to him about it. And I was like, oh, well, how long have they been dating? He's like, oh, 5-6 months now. I'm like, they broke up 2 or 3 months ago, So that just gives a little character on the kind of manipulation and just tomfoolery that this guy had, But think a little less than a year after that, my other uncle, still my mom's youngest brother, was killed in a quadruple homicide because of drugs and drug dealing and that. Yeah. So there was a string of FBI investigations into his murder and several other murders. So him and 3 other people were murdered. They suspect by the cartel, and then the house was burnt down. So because of that, there wasn't really a funeral for that one. So instead, I have 2 little canisters of cremated remains of each of them. But so that was like the next thing. And mind you, at this point, I am 10 years old, right? So this is all by the time I'm about 10 and a half. Following after that, my mom got into a second relationship roughly a year later, after the first one ended, with this, and he was a great guy. They just had very different goals at that time, right? And emotionally, they had different maturity levels, and they had different ways of dealing with what they needed. He was very avoidant, and because of all of the other stuff that happened both throughout my mom's entire life and the recent relationships, she was a bit more anxious about it. She was a bit more like concerned or quite frankly codependent with her relationships. And he was very emotionally distant. I mean, him were great. He was great for friends, but he was not a great father figure for me at that time. And I got to work with him. I got to learn how to do, more construction. I learned a lot of construction from my dad. I remember him building the pool house back in Georgia when I was like 6 and helping him build the pool house, but I learned more about like interior renovation, stuff like that he probably showed me that I didn't remember, but he was very, very avoidant. If he, and quite frankly, to a certain extent, negligent. If he was mad at you, he didn't talk to you for 2 days. But if he was not mad at you, then he loved you as much as he could, and he was nice and funny and you'd joke around and have a good time. But if you pissed him off, then y'all weren't on talking terms for the next several days. So, and this goes back to the God thing I was talking about beforehand. These crappy father figures that I had that attempted to replace my father, these counterfeits that I had in my life, mixed or combated really, really heavily and mixed with my, 8, 7 and 9, and I think I was 12 or 13 when they broke up. Your old brain gave me a really crappy view of God, to where I saw him as someone who was avoidant and negligent if you weren't doing something worthy of his blessing or worthy of his love in that moment. Very, very conditional, and he just wouldn't talk to you, and that's why I wouldn't be able to feel his presence at all until I got my act together. And someone who was condemning and mean and spiteful if you did something that they didn't like, and if you weren't giving all of their attention. So I viewed God as a narcissist who created us to worship him, and then I got angry and punished us when we didn't. And I view him also as a very distant and cold-hearted God who didn't really care about us or well-being, just cared about whether or not we were worshiping him or doing right or wrong, which is not who he is at all. It's such an evil lie and such a counterfeit of who God is and what his character is, what his heart is, that it's appalling, really. Raised in a Christian household, I could never deny that he existed. I was never able to go full-blown atheist. There was something in my heart, I just couldn't ever say that he wasn't there, even though I didn't feel it. So for me, I retreated into friends and substances and sex and relationships and everything else that I could, and especially philosophy and my brain. And that doesn't mean I did very well academically because I was too busy with the first bunch of things.
Right.
And that I tried to see how far I could understand God conceptually. I did everything I could to get to know God from a philosophical standpoint. I read the literature. I read debates on which type of love is best in the Greek, and that's how I got to understand God. So I became agnostic by the time I was like 12. And I was agnostic for a long time. At the end of the day, I figured out, well, I can't prove you exist, can't prove you don't, so I'm just gonna hope you don't exist and keep doing my thing, And it did not serve me well in the long term at all. That was my kind of escape from it. And nowadays, there's a lot of people that have similar escapes. Some people...
How long did this go on, Austyn? I mean, when did this first... Do you know about how old you were when this started?
About 12, probably.
Okay. Keep going.
So I was agnostic for probably, agnostic both in my head and publicly for probably 5 years. It wasn't until about a year ago that I actually got, or less than a year ago, that I got, actually saved. I had tried to get resaved again, and I had tried out the church thing a little bit for seasons, over the last 2.5 years, but until I actually gave him my heart, a little less than a year ago, that everything in my world just fell apart, and I saw what was actually there. When all the counterfeits left, I saw the authentic, real truth in the way. Anyways, but and we can get more about God later, because we can talk about God all the time, but...
we love it here, bro.
Yes, sir. So yeah, my uncle ended up getting murdered, and that was another thing that added to the tally of deaths. Followed after that, my great-grandmother ended up getting dementia. She was 64, I believe, when she got dementia, so she really wasn't that old at all.
No.
I don't know if you noticed, we have a little bit of a history of young kids.
No, trust me, 60's not old, bro.
It's not old, but she was 64 or 67, one of those two. And when she developed dementia, and the way that other members of the family handled her caused a lot of strife between her children, and which trickles down to other people. She ended up getting put into a care facility, and she ended up taking a lot of drugs and substances. She was sleeping 22 hours out of the day. And that was difficult for me to watch, even though I wasn't as actively involved in watching that as some other people. I still saw the gradual decay over time. I still saw when she came over to visit and she couldn't find anything, and she'd talk like a little girl again. Meanwhile, her husband, Forrest, who's who's a good bit older, is sharp as a tack and watching that happening too, you know? So roughly like 2 weeks to a month after, my timeline might be a little bit off, but really, really quickly after my great-grandmother died, my great-grandfather died following her. You know, it's kind of like, all right, well, it felt as if he was holding on for her, you know, more than anything else. So that happened when I was around 11, 12. But at 11, this is where a big issue for me really started that trickled out throughout the rest of my life, was for me the divide. Sorry, hold on. Let me wrap all this other stuff up first. So all of the deaths and all of the deterioration of relationships invoked in me a kind of anxiety to perform. It gave me an anxiety or this fear of failure. Fear of being a failure, fear of never measuring up to these ideals I heard about my father and how amazing he was without having the actual foundational reasons of why he was amazing. Because in my brain as a kid, when people kept telling me about how awesome he was, they would mention about his proficiency in his job and how he woke up in the morning and peed excellence and all this other stuff. And that's great. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And they told me how funny and smart and talented and everything else he was. But the reason everyone loved him was because of his character, was because of his heart and how he could chew you out privately behind closed doors and praise you in public later. And he could willingly admit, hey, I messed up here. How do I fix it? Or willingly tell you, hey, you messed up here. Here's how you can fix it. And that's why or as far as I'm aware, that's one of the major reasons he got so much affirmation and love and support and why he had such an impact, was because of his character and his heart. That was never made very clear to me as a kid. I always thought it was because of his performance and how well he was at his job, how good he did as a father, and how talented he was as a craftsman, as an artist, a musician, whatever else. So that performance anxiety and fear of failure drove me to seek affirmation through what I did and how well I got along with other people, right? It caused me to really, really pursue the world, because that's what the entire world is about. It's about show me why I love you.
Right.
You know, it's
Oh,
show me
yes.
I love you, you know, and because I fell in love with the world, because it's the only way I could tangibly feel in the moment that I was loved. And it caused me to forsake the fact that faith is a choice. It's not a feeling. That love is a choice. It's a sacrifice. It's not a feeling. I can be really, really angry at you and still love you deeper than you could ever imagine, because I'm going to choose to keep loving you. I'm going to choose to continue to be kind to you. I'm going to choose to keep sacrificing what I want for what you want because I love you. It's not the other way around. You know, it's not that I love you because I'm so nice to you, which is where I got it messed up, and which is where the world and really the devil took the opportunity to seize it and stir the pot as much as he could. So that's one chunk. So we'll save that one for later, but then we're going to get in this other thing that relates to it. So when I was like 10 and a half, 11 years old, so with all this other stuff that had been going on beforehand, with the current anxieties that I was already starting to develop, the fears of God and perceptions of God I was already starting to develop, and like these relational issues, I had a really bad encounter with someone who was close to me, right? I ended up making this best friend in like 6th grade, and he was my best friend, and I needed that best friend. I wanted that best friend because I so badly yearned for that affirmation. And I would go to his house, you know, every other day, and we'd hang out and skate around on our longboards, and he had his older brother, and his older brother was super cool, you know, and he was like 14, 15 years old, so he was the older guy, and, you know, and he smoked and he vaped a little bit, and he had like the cool friends, you know, and he could longboard better than we could. So part of me idolized him, like, oh, I want his affirmation.
Right.
And one day when, this was the day after, or maybe a week or so after the older brother's 15th birthday, I was staying the night at the house again, and he ended up seeing that affirmation. I can't speak for his motives, so I won't. But what happened was I ended up getting groomed and sexually assaulted by him when I was, 10 and a half, 11 years old. And he had just turned 15, and he was someone I looked up to. And in my head, this is my in. This is how I make him love me. If I let him, whatever. And I did. I let him, whatever, because I was a kid. I got groomed. And that really emotionally and physically and spiritually messed me up for a long time. And it caused me to both question my identity, who I was and what I wanted, what I liked in life, caused me to continue to seek that type of person for affirmation socially. So it went from me, seeking affirmation from my friend because he was just my friend and we were cool and we got along, I almost got, I got this affirmation from this person who did all of these things. That became the caricature that I sought affirmation from. People that smoked, people that vaped, people that were cool and older and better than me, right? And that shaped my social pursuit in a lot of ways as well. Instead of seeking good crowds I could hang out with and get closer to, those were the people I ended up gravitating towards, because they were the ones that gave me the affirmation when I was younger, because they thought I was cute and funny.
Right.
Right. And so that, and I'll get more into that later, but that was a really, really like foundational moment for me. So yeah, then roughly probably 8 months after that, so about midway through 6th grade, my older brother's in theater and I'm helping out with a theater production, and they're doing like The Little Mermaid, and one of the people out there, and everyone there, they loved me because I was cute and funny and haha, you know.
Right.
And there was a female there who was 16 years old, right? And I was like 10 or 11 years old, so it's about a 5-year age gap. But as a precocious individual who's always hung out with people that was older than him ever since I was a little kid, and who, I'm not going to say I'm intelligent or smart per se, but I'm definitely not stupid. And because of that, it gave me almost a false sense of confidence or cockiness that I was more mature than people my age, I felt. So I was able to take on bigger things at a younger age, you know? And this was my crowd. My crowd was older people, able to do what older people did. And that's where I should be, you know? You know, as stupid kids, we're always in such a rush to grow up.
Right.
The adulting sucks. But
Tremendously.
anyways, her and I, basically the same situation that happened with my best friend at the time's older. Oh, also sidetrack real quick. The best friend, he ended up finding out about it and then completely rejected me, hated me, and then proceeded to bully me for the rest of the time I was in high school, and created rumors and stuff like that because he found out, and he was hurt naturally, but he turned into such a strong resentment and loathing that he had for me that it made social life very, very difficult as well. Anyways, so me and this female, she's about 5 years older than I am, and similar thing, began a division in my head and my heart between love and physicality, to where the sexual and the emotional were always separate. I could never have them at the same time. Whenever I had them at the same time, something bad happened, something got ripped away, and that caused me to seek them both separately, which I realized recently in the past several months that it manifested itself in some really dysfunctional relationships. So I wasn't able to have the emotional relationship, that closeness, that bonding, that love that I sought, and that you can really only find through God, but that I tried to find through relationships. And if I ever was getting close emotionally like that, I would freak out and I ended up finding something physical on the side that was purely physical, so that in some sick way I felt secure, safe, you know?
They were divided.
They were divided.
That's over there and that's over there.
Yeah. Love is for people that I'm loving and have really close friendships with, and sex is for sex, you know? It's gross. It's disgusting. And it made my life very difficult for a lot of years because I couldn't combine them, but I'm constantly seeking for both. I'm constantly seeking for something that combines both. So emotionally, I end up getting clingy, but physically, I end up getting, you know, distant, you know, and it didn't work out very well for me. So yeah. So then after that, it's about 6th grade. I'm having struggles with my identity, with my sexuality, because of what happened earlier with best friend's older brother. And that caused me to like, maybe I like men. Maybe that's what I am. Maybe that's where I'll find my acceptance. So I hung out with people who were a member of that community, and I hung out with people that smoked. And those two communities will always accept you if you're one of them. So even if you aren't really one of them, if you say you're one of them and you do some of the things they do, or you like some of the things they like, you're in, and you're not getting out. Like, this is your crew now. And so that was the people I hung out with. When I went to about 7th grade, so I'm 12 now, like, that's why I'm like, that's where I'm like 12. That's when I really kind of drifted away from the gay community and focused more in on the smokers community, or the rebels or whatever.
Yep.
To where I started smoking weed consistently. Like, that's when I started experimenting with it, started smoking consistently. 8th grade was when I was smoking a lot. Like, every day, every morning. You know, I'm 13 years old and I'm smoking every day and vaping every day. I have my own nicotine. I have my own weed, which is... Anyways, so that was my community. But of course, there's a bunch of anxiety that comes with that. You know, pressures to be cool or to do this or do that, the other thing. So I would end up skipping class or sneaking out, and not being present in school. My grades started slipping a bit, even though I could get by and do the work. For me, and what it evolved into over several years was that my desire to get out of my mind, my desire to be out of my body and out of my brain was stronger than the feeling I felt. So I was always pursuing something harder, right? So I experimented with a lot of drugs, a lot of substances, and a lot of different ways of getting high over the years. And in ninth grade was where it got really bad. So seventh and eighth grade has had that progression socially with the problems socially and with establishing my group of people and creating patterns of behavior of breaking the rules, sneaking out, skipping school, slipping by in class. Ninth grade, my mom started drug testing me. So I started getting tested for marijuana. I was like, all right, well, that means I can't do marijuana. But at that point, my brain had already been so twisted. I already convinced myself that God wasn't really there, didn't really care. And I'd already been convinced that this is the only way I'll actually feel happy is if I make myself happy. Right? So I was like, instead of saying, oh, I guess I have to stop smoking weed and focus on school, I said, all right, well, what doesn't show up on the drug test? Became my question. And that became my constant line of thinking was what doesn't show up on this? Or what's the semantics behind every little thing? You know, if I did 90% of whatever the topic was wrong, I did 10% right, I would mark my flag in the 10% and I would be shooting people down to the kingdom come. You know, and that was like, no, but I didn't do this. And that's how I justified sinful, evil, delinquent behavior. So yeah, but I never did that though. That's not me. You know, or but I'm not racist. So I'm fine, you know, things like that. And finding any way I could to justify myself, I continued to fall deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole of addiction and crappy relationships and bad mental health and thought, really demons, demonic forces influencing me and influencing my life and convincing me with my own thoughts and then guilt and then giving me shame and guilt for having them. So by the time I'm 14, 15 years old, I'm battling with suicide. You know, actually in seventh grade is when the thoughts first started coming up, but I was able to smoke them and drink them away. But after you get used to smoking and using substances, you can't get rid of them anymore. So I'm battling with addiction and suicidal tendencies in 10th grade now. And in 10th grade, I ended up moving schools. I ended up going from my local high school to a dual enrollment program, which essentially means that while I'm doing my high school classes, I can also take college classes and get my associate's degree while I get my high school diploma.
That's
The
right.
way that it's set up is that it's not like I'm taking high school classes and college classes. I'm taking college classes in the college with college students, but since they also need this requirement for high school, they count it for high school as well. Someone who always hangs out with the older crowd, who's always thought he was ready and more mature for everything else, who now has way more freedom. Professors do not care if you show class at all, as long as you pass the class. Someone who's kind of smart, so you can pass the class and not do the work and not show up, did not work well at all. To where I lost all motivation and responsibility. And in 10th grade, I was still in that I still have some high school classes at like the college's high school. But by junior year, I didn't care at all. I did the bare minimum for anything. I'd have the guy that sat next to me in class send me all of his notes, and then I wouldn't read them after he sent them to me. I'd show up to the quizzes, and I get like a 70 or an 80 on them, you know, but I didn't learn the information. So by the end of the class, there's so much missing schoolwork. I have a 50-something or 40-something I have to withdraw. I can only withdraw from like 2 classes, so I have to do algebra for 4 years. Not fun. So yeah, so in 10th grade, backtrack a little bit, I ended up getting established with a really good friend group. By really good, I mean really close relationally. They were similar to me in different ways. So they all still smoked and they all still like vaped nicotine and stuff. And they were all still curious in other drugs and psychedelics. In 9th grade, I had tried out most of the other drugs and psychedelics: shrooms, acid, salvia, DMT, pills, cough syrups, I did cocaine once. I just experimented, had a party lifestyle. But I had to do it all in secret. So I couldn't actually go out to real parties. I had to sneak out and go to my buddy's house and do it in the dark and make sure that my parents didn't hear me when I snuck back in after I dismantled the alarm for the 11th time, and living in anxiety of when I'm going to get caught. So the entire time I'm paranoid and I'm hallucinating. So not a fun mix at all, but I kept forcing myself to do it because I hated being by myself and I couldn't live with it. And I still had all of those same issues, just now with a friend group that loved me and accepted me at the time.
Right.
Right? So the issues didn't go away, but I
Nope.
could place them with friends. And I could still smoke and vape, but I wasn't able to do some of the harder stuff. So I just stopped caring about the drug tests. I just willingly failed them all the time and was grounded for like 3 years straight. And the second I'd gain back any semblance of freedom, I'd do something and lose it all again. I ended up not getting my driver's license until October of when I was 17 years old. You know, because I just wasn't able to do what I needed to do. I couldn't do both. And the way my personality works, that's really good if I'm pursuing something good, really bad if I'm pursuing something bad, you know?
I think that speaks to just about anybody who's been down this rabbit hole of life. I know just what you've been talking, it brings very true to a long period of my life.
Yeah.
So keep on going.
Suicide survivor.
Yeah.
His story's on here. You need to go sometime, go listen to his, go pull his episode up.
Yes, sir, I will. I will, absolutely. Yeah, I'll probably look that up later tonight after this is over, to be honest. So, I'm having these same deep-seated insecurities and fears and replacing it with friendships that ultimately don't matter. And yeah, they love me and stuff, but are still very influenceable. We're all like, 15 years old, at the time. And there had been a lot, because my addictions were so deep that even when I was hanging out with them, I was like a nicotine fiend. Nicotine was horrible for me because I didn't have it all the time, because I had to always like hide it, like tuck it in between my legs when I went home, is that whenever my friends had it, I was like about it, And it's like a little thing, but that's the way I was with everything.
Right.
But with that was just a constant one. And then in the second I had that, I'm like, all right, now let's get high. And then I'd be tweaking out until we were able to get some weed. And then, I remember panhandling around the college, lying to people, telling them I needed lunch money so I could get money to buy an eighth so me and my buddy could smoke it on a Friday. No one's there. There's no classes. But that's just who I was all the time. And eventually they got tired of it and they gave me the boot, But the reason they gave me all right, well, I'll get into that in a second. So yeah, so all those same problems are there, right? And I'm still stuck in those addictions, and I end up doing something really, really, really stupid. One night I'm out late, and I've noticed if I don't go to bed by like 11 o'clock, I'm going to probably get into something stupid. So I just have to force myself to go to bed before 11. If not, I'll be up and it'll be like 1 in the morning. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to go to bed yet. And then I'll end up, sneaking out or going on a drive or going somewhere, and I have to move. I have to do something. So it's one of those nights. It's like probably 1 or 2 in the morning. It's right after New Year's, right after Christmas, and it's locked up and closed. So I'm like, well, I already left the house. I already went through all the trouble of sneaking out. I'm here. I'm getting something in my body. So I ended up breaking the window of the gas station. I broke into the gas station and stole a lot of weed in carts, which I was planning on keeping some and then selling a bunch of them so I could buy more drugs and harder stuff, like an idiot. And I went home. I had stored up. I had my stash. I was using it, and I was like really, really mentally not there for like a few weeks, And then my parents ended up finding my stash, and they threw it out, and they're like, okay, we're not, in their heads, they were not going to talk to me about it right then. They didn't want to ruin the holidays. We'll deal with this when the family, like when the siblings end up leaving the house, So then one night, I don't have anything. My stuff is running out. I sneak out again. I try to break in again. I don't. I end up leaving. And then at this point, they're figuring out like, who's this freaking kid that stole all of our crap? And they end up finding who I am because I'm dumb. And I end up getting arrested for a felony burglary. It was like $3,000 something worth of damages and lost goods, So I ended up going to juvie for like 2 weeks, maybe a little less on that. And then I'm going to juvie. I'm in juvie. And I'm like, this is my life now. So I was like, I guess I'll read the Bible. That's what they do in the movies. Try to pursue God. And it took like a year and a half, 2 years before I was actually able to pursue God when things got hard, instead of just looking at his name and reading some pieces of paper and then hoping it'd go away. So I'm going to juvie, and my parents had already been looking into a program to send me to, something to get me out of the house, to like some way to go to a behavioral health center for a while. And they ended up finding this place called the Barry Robinson Center in Virginia Beach. So I ended up getting sent there, and it's kind of miraculous how it ended up working out, because they had been trying to set it up like a week or so before I got arrested, a week or two before I had gotten arrested. Yeah, a week or two. And then when the police officers came to arrest me again, because they had to do it like 3 different times, like one for each charge they ended up getting, had like a separate arrest or something after I had already gotten out of juvie, or after I had, because Florida's on a point system, so if the initial thing that you get arrested for is worth, like, let's say 20 points, then you stay in juvie until it's over with. If not, then you're in juvie for a night, and then you end up getting arrested later for the total tally of the points of all separate 3 things, I guess. I don't understand all the specifics about it, but I was able to go home later that night after I got arrested, and then I ended up going back to juvie for, a bit longer. Anyways, when they're picking me up to take me back to juvie again, they're trying to talk to the police officer, saying, "Sir, we're trying to help him out. We're trying to do something to get him out of this situation this mindset that he is in, this skewed life perspective that he's in. We're trying everything we can. We don't know what else to do. We're trying to send him to this facility." And the cop, you can tell, and I wasn't here when this happened, but this is me relaying it to you.
Right.
The cop had this look where he's like, yeah, whatever. Parents are always trying to, oh, it's a mental health thing, whatever, after they get in trouble. We've seen this all the time. We don't care, And right at that moment, right when they were super, whatever, don't care, blah, 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 Barry Robinson ended up calling my mom back while the police officer was there about to arrest me. And he's like, no, wait, see, this is them. And they on the phone was like, hey, is this Alyssa? Yes, this is she, blah, blah, blah. I was like, so you sent us an invoice, like a week or 2 ago about trying to get him in here, where this is our follow-up, blah, 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 blah. And which proved like, hey, we were trying to get him here before he did the stupid thing, before any of this went out, before anyone found out about the crime,
Yep.
Like, I think it was a month before. So it was a month before, not a few weeks, before anyone found out about the crime. And everything softened, like, okay, this guy's got to go. So he did something very, very unusual, which cops don't normally do. Is he actually wrote in his police report a recommendation for me to go to a facility instead of a juvenile detention program, which was a blessing, because that went a really, really long way. We ended up getting a lawyer, and the best possible result that could have happened. We ended up getting a deferred prosecution agreement. And what that essentially meant is that essentially the charges are expunged if I do the 6 months, the Barry Robinson program, and complete it, the 6 month probationary thing afterwards. Everything's off. But then it's a time thing. So as I get older, like when I turn 19, that's when, all right, it's like, now it's off of this database.
Right,
so
right.
When everything's gone completely,
Austyn, keep on talking.
Yes, sir. So I ended up going to Barry Robinson, which was awesome for me. It was really, really good, because I ended up, there's this man there named Mr. Haldane Hallelujah Harris was his name. His name wasn't Hallelujah, but that's the joke. Anyway, because he had a weird name. It was like, I don't remember, but he had 3 H's in his name. Each initial was an H, and he was like the bottom of 13 children. And he was this pastor man who worked at Barry Robinson, and he just loved Jesus and loved us. And he was constantly preaching and showing God's love to us. One time, resident there ended up like spitting, like was drinking chocolate milk, and they got mad at him, and they ended up like spitting in his face. And he, as someone who's had anger issues with the past that God helped him out with, remained calm and collected and just kept loving on him until he calmed down, right? And this man, that's why he was my first real spiritual mentor, right? I had other people, other therapists and counselors that I could have more of a philosophical talk about God with. He was the first one that ever taught me, okay, this is how you actually read the Bible. Read it. You're reading everything too literally, Austyn. You have to read it spiritually. What is he really saying to you here? I'm not asking what they did. I'm asking what's happening.
Right.
And he started laying those seeds that helped me grow the relationship with God. While I was in Barry Robinson, I had reading like the whole New Testament, which was awesome for me, and started to actually read the Bible and started to develop a little bit of a relationship with him, but I was never sold out. I became almost Sunday Christian. I became like, okay, you're real, but I'm going to choose to willingly not follow you. I accept that you're real. You exist. I believe you exist. I don't want to do what you told me to do. And I was stuck there just in pure rebellion, It had been rebellion for a while, but then it was just no excuses. I'm rebelling. So I'm doing the Barry Robinson for 6 months, and it's a difficult program, but it was good. It was good for me. It worked a lot on my relationships with my parents, with mom and my stepdad, Lou. And it helped a lot with just me kind of figuring out how some of the things that have happened to me before impacted me. And so I ended up getting out, and I'm home, and I'm doing well. I'm working at Starbucks, and I'm getting a job, and I'm making money. I'm in my senior year now, and all the friends that I used to hang out with had completely cut me off. We stopped talking because I was gone for so long, and there was so much drama that had happened between us before I had left, and a bunch of rumors and other stuff, which I can get into later, that ended up building up to just, we stopped talking, cut off. So I had to make all new friends, but I still had some of those old friends that I knew from in the day back when I was a good boy that were good people, but I completely took advantage of and didn't cherish at all, So I started talking to them again. A really good friend of mine, Jordan Pagan, fantastic woman. She loves Jesus. She's great, super kind, funny, smart, and she was someone I was able to actually hang out with and get to know. Started to work out and go to the gym a little bit, trying to find different things to keep myself occupied with. But while I was home for those 7 months, my biggest concern was it's because there was still no heart change. It was a behavior change. My focus became on staying sober, or at least not getting in trouble. Right?
That's a dangerous place. I know that place.
It's a very dangerous place. And that was my entire focus, is just don't smoke. Just don't do anything stupid right now. You can do it when this is all over. Just don't do anything stupid right now. About 2 months in, I ended up relapsing. And I ended up smoking again, and then it started to cycle back over slowly, but by my 6th or 7th month home, I was full-blown back into buying my own weed and carts and nicotine and smoking all the time and getting shrooms and acid and all this stuff, sneaking out. And I never had that real heart change. It just had pursued behavior, continued to try to find love or affirmation or success through my actions, through what and that's why I'm very, very grateful for Teen Challenge Adventure Ranch. That's where I got sent after that. So in March 4th was my first day there. March 7th, my first official day. I got sent to Teen Challenge Adventure Ranch in the middle of nowhere, Morrow, Arkansas. And it's a ranch, and there's horses and stuff, and it sucks, and it's annoying, but it's really, really good for me. And there, I was just completely and totally engulfed by the love of Jesus. Every day, every staff member that goes there and works there, they're not getting paid a ton of money. They're not there because it makes them look like a better person. They're there because they love you. And they take people yelling and punching you in the face and doing all sorts of horrible things and yelling obscenities. And they continue to sit there and just love on you. They're firm, they're hard, they don't budge. But there's still that lenience and that grace and that love and that affirmation. And the way they viewed it was, hey man, the way that the system is set up, the way we have all this set up, part of the program and working the program is you have to do chapel 5 times a week, and you have to take these Bible notes, and you have to, take sermon notes and learn about these verses and stuff like that. And if you do that and you do a good job, we'll sign off in your little book, and then you'll get to go to the next level and you'll leave, So either way, the work is the work. You don't have to.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
It's a reminder for me and John as we go that we don't take up too much of your time. And if you're comfortable, just keep right on going, because this is absolutely great.
Yes, so I cleared like 2 hours to make sure that no matter what, that I'm here for y'all.
Excellent. Excellent. Keep going.
I appreciate you guys. But yeah, and there's people that's how they went through the program, and they fought for a really long time. One guy, he ran away like twice. No one ever runs away from TCAR. You're not getting away. No one's ever done it. They've been around for like 50 something years. You leave the property, they legally can't touch you. They just call the cops. You're wearing a bright yellow shirt and khakis and flip-flops, like in Arkansas, in the middle of
nowhere. You're going to stand out.
They'll find you.
Right.
Even if you're in your own clothes, you only have 6 outfits. They'll find you, But he was able to get through the program, and that's the way that they set it up. It was an opportunity for relationship with Jesus, with people, and it was encouraging for me because there's people who are constantly having those encounters with God. We're constantly having those mountaintop experiences. The way that David Worthington, one of my mentors there, explained it is, you go to church and you're sitting in your chair right here, and the guy's sitting in the chair right next to you, and he's having a Jesus moment. You're not going to have a Jesus moment if you change chairs. It's because It's because you chose to pursue Jesus.
That's
You're not
right.
sitting in the wrong spot. Your heart's in the wrong posture. It was then that I really pursued God. About a month before I went to TCAR, right, is when I was trying to get everything right because I knew I was going too far. I went to this thing. I went to the Passion Conference, which is a big Christian music festival. Me and my mom and my stepdad are going again this year. Super excited.
So you went to the one in Atlanta.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
It was awesome. I was super stoked about it. And that was when my heart was really opening up. Because before that, while I was in Barry Robinson, I was reading. After I got home, I stopped reading the Bible completely, you know.
So seed was put in place at
The
Barry
seed was
Robinson. Yeah.
And it was because, and I'm going to give all credit and props, just first off, all glory to Jesus and the God for working in my heart there. But not because of Barry Robinson's center, because of Haldane Harris. Because the center is not a specifically Christian organization. They have like a Catholic mass for every holiday.
Right.
It's not a Christian program. You know, so I give all credit to Haldane Harris because he helped me a lot. He planted those seeds, you know. But that, and I saw 65,000 people my age and a little bit older crying out and worshiping God. And
I think the age is like 25 and under.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. A bunch of college kids, people my age, people I would want to be friends with, people I would normally hang out with, praising God and worshiping him and just loving him. And there was just so much unity there, so much oneness with him there, and I couldn't understand it. And it made me kind of angry, to be honest. And it filled me with so much doubt because I was like, is this really God? God, is this really you? Is this really your voice? Or am I just being emotional? Is this really you? Or am I being conditioned to feel this way because of the environment I'm in? And it caused me to start actually pursuing God himself.
Yes.
Instead of what are you? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And that evolved into, we'll get into that. So then after that, I went to Chrysalis, which is the teenage version of the Emmaus Walk. I'm 17 at the time. Do you guys know what the Emmaus Walk is? For the listeners, those of you that don't, it's essentially like a 2-day, 3-day camping, like God and Jesus retreat. You know, you don't have any phones, you don't have anything like that, and it's a walk with Jesus and it's God. There's like 7 or 8 sermons over the course of 2 or 3 days, and you do like little activities here and there, but you end up just getting a bunch of letters of love, and the entire thing is just showing you love, agape love without a reason. Love without anything deserving it. Just, hey, here's a little gift from someone that loves you. And they give you a gift, like tons of gifts throughout the day, every day, from random people that you've never met in your life and other people that you didn't know still thought about you. And it was awesome. And there I met another awesome mentor, Bob Monroe, you know, and he's been really, really helpful for me as well. And he helped me with a struggle I had with my faith. And I got so caught up. How do I know if it's God's voice? How do I know if it's God speaking to me? And he just gave me this little bit of advice. And he was just like, well, try it out. I don't know, find out. You hear that little voice that's telling you to punch a guy in the face? It's probably not him, so don't do that. But if you're like, oh, I should stand over there, do it. Worst case, you stand over there and you look like an idiot for 5 minutes and then you move, you know? Like, test it, like, find out. I was like, okay, I guess you're right. So that night, we ended up going into a worship service and a few steps back. And then in my head, I see myself walking out of the door and just leaving the worship service. And I say to myself, like, no, God would want me to be here in his presence. I'm supposed to be here next to him, right? And then I was like, why would I do that? And I had that feeling I had to. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I walked out of the worship service and I just started walking. And as I was walking, and it's Blue Lake is where we were at. So there's a big old icy lake, like 50-something degrees, 40-something degrees. And as I'm walking, I envision myself standing in the middle of this lake, looking up, and the Holy Spirit, like a dove, coming, like falling onto me. You know, I'm like, God, I literally started cussing at God because that's who I was. I was like, God, you really freaking want me to get baptized right now? Are you serious? Fine, you know what? Fine. And in my like angry, defiant arrogance, I was like, fine, I'll do it. I'll do it, God. Fine. You don't think I will? I will. You know. So I'm walking over, and as I'm walking over, I'm kind of being a bit facetious. And I was like, you want me to keep the boots on or off? And he said, on. I was like, fine. And I walked into the river, I walked into the lake, and I ended up like baptizing myself, just me and God. And that was my first act of like faith submission or whatever. And after that, I'm walking, I'm frigid, I'm cold, and I'm just so angry because I didn't want that to happen at all. So I went to the shower and I cool off, and then I sit with that for a little while. It's like, oh, it's not real, because it was no one else around. It was just me and God. So that's how I knew I didn't do it for attention. I know I didn't do it because of social pressure, and my emotions were all negative. So I know I didn't do it for emotions, but there's something that made me do it anyways. And it was God. It was him leading me. It was him teaching me how to deny myself little by little. It was him teaching me to trust him, not by the sound of his voice, but by his heart and who he is, by his character. Instead of looking and trying to analyze what is the timbre of his voice, what does he sound like? He just showed me, just do it because I'm me. Do it because I am that I am, And so I shower off, and I'm wrestling with that for a little while, and then I get out of Chrysalis, and I'm waiting, and I end up going to T-Car, and this entire time I'm just wrestling with, like, is it real, God? And while I'm showering, I'm like, all right, God, fine. You can do whatever you want to do. I don't understand you. You don't make sense. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm yours. Jesus, I need you in my life. I can't do it on myself. I can't do anything on my own. I need you in my life. And that's why I give my heart to God. I actually say the prayer and I give it to him. I'm not saying words. I mean it, So then I end up going to Wyoming. They're not Wyoming. Not yet. I end up going to T-Car about a month later. And I'm there, and I'm just kind of like observing everything. And there the crock pot turns on. And it's this pressure cooker where you're surrounded by a bunch of people that you don't like and a bunch of stuff that you think is stupid, and you can't escape it. So you have to either learn how to deal with what's going on. Just bless me with things that I didn't deserve and I didn't need. She bend the rules for me a little bit, just like, give me like a candy or like a bar or something that I wasn't supposed to have because it's an off-campus candy, or as we called it, secular food, and I mean, she get like little treats, little things to show you that she loves you. She's like, hey, Austyn, you want to come with me to MedPass? And I'd come with her to MedPass to help her set up like the water and stuff. And we just talk, There's another man, Blake Updike, incredible. And he knows the Bible like the back of his hand, and he knows every verse. And we'll go to church together on Sunday mornings, as a hall, as like my dorm. And he'll sit there and he'll listen to the entire thing. He'll pick out all the things that are good. And then when he comes, he's like, all right, well, listen, everything about that sermon was great, but when he says this in this way, that's a common misinterpretation of this verse. It doesn't mean blah, blah, blah. And he'd clarify it. And he'd make sure that he's like, hey, I don't want you to be misled on what God is saying here because of the way a human's saying it. I want to make sure that this is what this means. And I hope you understand the weight of what this means. And he just constantly loved on us too. But from people like that who just stuck with me even though I was a total D-bag. And mind you, for the record, I snuck a vape with me onto campus after I had been saved. So I was saved and I loved Jesus, but I couldn't deny my flesh yet. I didn't understand that I wasn't a slave. I didn't understand.
It's called sanctification.
What's that, John?
It's called sanctification.
That's it.
Yeah, I've been I got saved and I had received salvation, sanctification, right? But I wasn't yet a spiritual warrior yet. I didn't have the armor of God.
Sanctification is a process. We're going through it every day of our life. We'll never come out of sanctification until we put on our new body.
It's rough right now.
It's called the flesh disease, right, JJ?
That's
right. I
right.
don't want to be cyborg, but I don't really want the flesh no more.
I'm sorry, brother. Until you pass on, you ain't gonna get rid of it.
No.
Yeah, and it
doesn't get any easier. Just so you know.
That sucks, but it's okay. You get stronger.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Well, because all right, so there's like a part of me that I know I'm gonna have to deal with the flesh for the rest of my life, but in my head, because I'm a fitness guy. They made me do CrossFit at T-Car, which gave me a respect for it now because I used to make fun of CrossFit. But for me, fitness has been really good for just redirecting things, especially where you're stressed out, giving me something to do instead of just mulling in it, and it gave me a new way to analyze things and to really kind of gauge life. It's great for analogies. In my head, if you're pushing weight and the weight is too much for you, you go down in weight until you get stronger. 225 is a heavy bench, no matter whether you can bench 500 pounds or just the bar. 225 is still a heavy weight. Your bodies just get stronger. And in my head, I viewed, overcoming temptation the same way. It's not like the gap that you have to jump over the temptation of the sin gets smaller. you just get stronger legs so you can jump farther because you know that you're not jumping by yourself. But the gap is still always there, and it's always difficult, you know? And you guys know way more about it than I do.
Well, you know, Todd and I both will tell you that although I said what I did, I don't want it to come across the wrong way. I don't want you to take it the wrong way. When I say it doesn't get any easier, it's the more you learn, the deeper you get with Christ in your relationship, the more you realize how much garbage you have in your life. And
regardless of circumstance, it's there. You just have better armor to deal with it from day to day to day to day.
So one thing that Todd and I will tell you that we talk about on here a lot is if you read the book of Acts, you'll see that every Timothy needs a Paul, every Paul needs a Barnabas, but every Barnabas needs a Paul, and every Paul needs a Timothy. So it's reciprocated. And we have had guys on here who have been that Paul in the Timothy's life, who have circumvented things to where the Timothy ended up at a point being the Paul in the relationship. And my thing with you, Austyn, is make sure you surround yourself with people like-minded. And find you an accountability partner that's going to be honest with you, that's going to love you regardless. It's going to tell you that he loves you no matter who he's in front of. And that's because without that,
it's hard to be. It's the authenticity plays off of that completely.
Yeah,
because it just if it's not there, if it's not authentic, it's just another guy.
Yeah.
But when that guy is the same, no matter what, then you know, hey, this guy I can trust. This person I can trust. It doesn't have, for me, let me stop right there. For me, it has to be a guy. It can't be a female. My life has not went well there. So I just know that it can't be.
I'm trying to avoid every female but my mom and my sisters for at least 2 years.
Well, that's not bad, but listen,
I'm joking.
That relationship is one way, but the relationship that we're talking about in accountability partners, just think about the book of Acts. Even in the gospel, when Jesus sent them out, he sent them out in twos.
2 by 2.
Yeah. They didn't go by themselves. And in the book of Acts, it was a minimum of 2. And then you saw 3 and 4 at times that they were out. I mean, when you start to hear Paul talk about all the different people who he's discipled and who have come alongside him in his ministry, it's amazing. So you need to find somebody that can walk alongside you that is of like mind, that will be a true friend in Christ, a true brother in Christ. That's very important. I put myself in the desert for 20 years after pastoring the church for 2 years. And so I get it. Todd gets it. Todd knows, and I hope Todd don't get mad at me, but he sent me a text message the other day, and it's just like, you know what? I'll just let it go. Here's what I'll tell you. I know it had to be embarrassing for him to send it because the flesh took over. But you know what? I'm there. I'm not going to judge him. I'm not going to ridicule him. I'm going to say, hey, brother, I'm here. I'll be praying for you and stay strong. You know what? You're not pushing daisies. You've got tomorrow to make up for it.
That's right.
And another one of a guest that's been on here a couple of times, he's a missionary to refugees that are coming out of Afghanistan and Iran, and he goes to Athens, Greece, and his name's Larry Bowles. One of the things that Larry says, and always remember this, Austyn, when you start to get wrapped up, well, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not doing, or I got to be doing this, I have to do that. Always remember, when you get in that mindset, to remind yourself, Jesus plus anything equals nothing. Jesus plus nothing equals everything. There's nothing you can do to earn your salvation.
It's it.
Nothing.
But we can chase after him as hard as we can for the rest of our life.
That's what Larry says. Larry says, I'm running after Jesus. I'm going to chase him. When I catch him, I'm going to tackle him and kiss him all over his face. That's what Larry said. I mean, he's a wonderful man of God. And listen, Larry has his own issues, man. I mean, you'd never know, really. But he's a wonderful man of God. Just remember, like I said, man, just walk it daily. And these people that have played a huge role in your life, I mean, look at you now, man. I mean, how I found you.
Yeah, and I'm grateful for the people that have gotten here. You know, I'm grateful for God and providing those opportunities, because it's difficult to find a real, genuine friend, a brother. There's a proverb that says, you know, brothers are meant for, or was it, friend close by is better than a brother 100 million miles away, right? Paraphrasing.
Right.
I paraphrase all my proverbs because my memory is not great for remembering word for word, but it also says that brothers are born for battle, you know? And
That's it.
All of us being brothers in Christ, having the like mind, being adopted into his family. You know, like it says that in Romans, I think it's 8:32 or something like that. I'm probably off by a few verses, so give me some grace. You know, we got
I'll find it for you.
He'll find it for me. Thank you. You know, and I'm grateful for you guys too. Thank you so much, because even though I may not be as good looking as y'all, I got some brothers in Christ I can hold on to.
So
my head's big enough already. Don't make it swell anymore.
What was that you were looking for in Romans 8? What was it?
Romans 8, I think it's 29 through 32. It's the one that says that he who is justified, you know, he who chose you also justified you, and he who chose you also, you know, called you to inherit his glory, right? And then
Right.
Otherwise, in there, I don't remember if it's that verse or if it's farther up, but I'm pretty sure it's in Romans 8. It says that he died so that he could become the first of many brethren. Am I like
you're right there on it, but I'm not picking it up. My eyes, I've had a long day, and my eyes aren't picking it up right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
somebody in the comments straighten us out.
Well,
absolutely.
We need comments. Somebody in the comments straighten us out.
Yeah. Let me find it in the Bible app.
There you go.
So while you're looking that up, one thing that Todd and I recommend to people, especially somebody in your situation that's dealt with addiction, is find you a recovery ministry somewhere that is Christ-centered. I'm not talking about AA. And listen, AA's got its place.
It's got its place.
So talking about something like CR, but even with CR, you have to make sure, you have to make sure it's in the right place. It's in the right, that it's in the right church. It's the right fit. And are you all going to, I mean, we can talk about that. I don't want to worry about that right now.
But yeah, I am going to a CR every Tuesday.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't go to last Tuesday because holidays, and the Tuesday before that I wasn't able to.
Todd, he knows about Hurt's habits and hang-ups
on Tuesdays, and then I'm trying to find a place to volunteer and serve, because if I'm not busy, I'm probably doing something stupid.
Well,
you know,
CR has some of the best opportunities to plug in and serve. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
It's and last shout out real quick. Well, not the last one. There's a lot. There's a lot of people that I really want to just lift them up because they're so amazing.
Go ahead, bro.
But brother of mine, Braxton, his name is Braxton Beal, and he's also going to YWAM in Montana. Same time that I think we start the same day. If I might be wrong though, but he's someone I met at T-Car, and when we first met, we hated each other so much. There was so much disdain and rage. We fought all the time, like little girls, constantly arguing and bickering, because both of our heads were bigger than the other ones, and we both wanted to prove how much more manly we were, you know, and how much manlier we were, and we were constantly fighting each other, hating each other's guts. I was constantly in competition with him, you know, but one day it just switched. Because it's like we had both been pursuing God, but on separate tracks, because we both thought each other were hypocrites. And we got that righteous anger, but our fleshly nature brought it out, and just, you know, the anger of man cannot produce the righteousness of God, you know? And then there's a moment, he got back from his past, which is like a little stint you take at home, just like trial run, making sure, hey, this is where your pitfalls are, and making sure everything's good on the home front. He came back and we started talking, and we're just like best friends. And it's because we both love Jesus. Our entire relationship centered around Jesus. And loving on each other and becoming better men. And he's like my real accountability partner. I was actually just talking to him right before I got on this, you know, and so yeah, no, I want to give him a big shout out, because he's also been foundational in showing me love with nothing to gain. And it's for me, there's been the reason I feel it's important to give these people their props is because earlier also in the story, I showed you how those seeds of doubt and despair and relational insecurity were planted. And these are the people that God used to fix that.
So let me stop you real quick. So they're not props. You're not giving them props. It's encouragement.
Encouragement.
For them to continue to do that for someone else. And that's what you need to make sure you pass on to someone. It's encouragement. It's not props, because they serve the same Jesus that you do.
I'm giving
and what they're doing is they're doing what's in their heart that the Holy Spirit's put on them. So they are encouraging you. You're thanking them for the encouragement that they've showed you.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm not chastising you, brother. No. I'm just saying, because Todd knows how I've kind of, I have been so thankful for what some of the men that we both know, what they've meant to my life. And, I just I guess I kind of go overboard in making sure that I have that encouragement that I'm encouraging people.
The encouragement we
thank you so much.
Freely give away.
Yeah. So just make sure that just keep encouraging people, man. That's encouraging you and thanking them. But the way you can thank them, man, is to just be on fire for Jesus and share the gospel. That's the best way to show you're thankful.
So Jon was telling me before we were planning this podcast, that you had a mission trip.
Yes, sir.
So where are we in relation in your current situation and the mission trip, and how does all of that tie together?
So I'm going to something called Youth with a Mission, or YWAM. It's a global mission network. And
y'all keep going.
They have like a bunch of bases set up around the world, and the way it goes is your first one that you have to go to, you have to do their DTS, their discipleship training school, before you can do any of their other courses, right? Where you spend the first 3 months in intense fellowship with other like-minded people who love Jesus and have a heart for missions,
right?
And really learning about what does evangelism mean, what does missionary work mean, and just really deep diving into the Bible for the first 90 days, first 3 months. The second 3 months is a 3-month-long mission trip, to where you go to wherever country your mission trip or your outreach phase is what it's called is. So where I'm planning on going in Norway, they haven't told us, or we don't know where outreach is. During the 3 months while we're doing the work and doing the schooling and learning more about it, we're also going to be in constant prayer, asking God to guide us. So every mission, and it varies from base to base. Some of them are like, hey, this is our passion, our mission is for the Balkan region. Our mission is for Europe. You know what I mean? The one I'm going to is we're going wherever God wants us to go. Because if I get too caught up in making a plan about it, I'll overthink it and I'll try to take control. So I need him to be at the wheel at all times.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, be a little bit vulnerable with that. It's something I've been struggling with while I've been home a little bit now, is making sure I don't fall back into those old habits. Or if I do stumble or do mess up, realize sanctification is a process and it's hard, and it's okay for it to be difficult, and it's okay to not get it perfect,
It's all about direction and not perfection.
Yeah.
One of the things that the recovery group that I help lead, our go-to verse for our recovery group is Romans 12:1 and 2. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true, proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And the way some of the newcomers that come into the group, when we start really focusing in on that verse and letting them know that, hey, you have the opportunity every morning that you wake up to jump. The first thing to do is thank him for waking you up, first off, and then get into his word. And that's how you will transform your mind from the time that you get up until the time you go back to bed, and thank him for the day, but also whatever shortfalls you had, whatever those shortfalls are, let him know. He's big enough. Whatever it is, he's big enough to cover anything and everything. And that's just it. It's a relationship with a heavenly Father that never ends, continually new each morning. And hey, just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yes, sir. That's one thing that I really struggled with when I first really got saved. And especially after I had made several months of like tangible progress along with spiritual growth and development, you know? Being forgiven of the sins you made when you were ignorant are one thing. Being forgiven of the volitional, willingly choosing to sin you lost against your flesh, those sins is a different ballgame. It, for me, feels so much harder to accept forgiveness
Of
after
those things. Right.
than it is to accept forgiveness for something before I knew Jesus. And that's just, yeah. So thank you. I'll definitely, I gotta dive back into Romans 12 again, but I will thank you for that. I appreciate it.
I camp out in all of Romans, but especially in 12 and 13, because it keeps me focused and it keeps me on course. It keeps me in contact with guys like Jon that hold me accountable. They hold me to a standard, and it's his standard. Hey, just keep walking forward.
Yeah, we need to add Austyn to our Gapsman thing. So if he needs prayer requests or something,
Absolutely.
yeah, we can. We're in a group me group. And it's not like it's top secret or anything like a Masons or anything. It's a group that we add to it a little bit by little as we make new friends in Christ. And so I'll get Todd your contact information so he can add you.
Absolutely.
So one of the most powerful things, helpful things that I've heard said lately was a couple weeks ago, maybe 3, was on the WFR live stream before the service. Derek McQueen was talking. And I can't remember where he said he heard it from. Somebody that he had listened to said the first thing they pray for in the morning, the very first thing, is God, get in my head before I do.
I like that. That's good.
Yes.
That's powerful, bro. You know what causes me my problems? Is when I get in here. When I get in here and start rattling around, I'm in trouble. Ask him. He'll tell you. He'll tell you straight up. Right here is one of my biggest problems. Not here. I got a huge heart. But it's right here that I let affect this, because this can't do what it needs to, because I can't get out of here. I'm rattling around in my head.
That's a prayer I've been having lately, and I'll pray. I'll be talking to him before I go to bed. You know, I'm like, God, my heart is close to you, but my head is so far from you. Why is my head so far away from you, Lord? Why are my thoughts so distant from you? All right, and some of the other young people might not like me for this, but it's totally because of phones. 100%.
Oh yeah.
Phones are such a big contributor to that, because I know I went on like a social media detox for 9 months. I didn't use social media at all. And I got home and it started off really small, little things, you know? Like I'll go to check a post that I made to check fundraising and see how things were going for YWAM, you know? And I fixed my feed to where all my feed was all Jesus stuff. It's all, motivation or encouragement or words from God that people are posting, or new Christian music that I can find. But it became about quantity, because I ended up losing track of just scrolling, and I ended up losing so much time just scrolling, just looking for the dopamine rush. And especially with people with an addict mindset, you think too much, so you try to replace it with a dopamine rush, and then you have to get something that's a bigger dopamine rush. So I think phones definitely contribute a lot to us getting too in our heads, I think.
Covenant Eyes is a really good app to use.
I have the what's it called? Their Victory thing installed.
Right.
Their Victory installed, but I'm still getting Covenant Eyes set up with my stepdad, actually.
Very good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I have.
So Austyn, let me ask you something. So you've been doing this walk now for about a year or so now?
Yeah, about a year. A little less.
So what's the impact been with your relationship with your mom and your stepdad?
It's amazing. Let me tell you about my stepdad for a little bit, because I I want to give him some encouragement and give him a shout out because he's been so pivotal as well for me. But also because it shows kind of our relationship too. God supernaturally blessed he and I with a love and a heart for each other and a softness of heart for each other. You know, after the other failed relationships and there are things that had gone on and all these other iotas of deceit and guilt and hatred that I had for father figures, for some reason, when I first met him, you know, it's been almost 3 years now, for some reason, I just felt comfortable. For some reason, my heart wasn't hard. My heart was softened towards him. I let him in, and he and I ended up getting really close. I still think, even though we have our issues at times, I still think I think I'm probably the closest with him out of my siblings. And that is 100% a God thing.
Yes.
Him being a good, godly man and a godly father and someone who pursues God's heart, he has restored my relationship with God as a father.
That's awesome.
It almost reminds me of the whole story of Israel. You know, throughout the Bible, you see God creating opportunities for you to come to him and establishing things for you and loving on you. And then we drift away. So he uses people and object to fix that sin that we broke.
That's
right?
it.
I'm anxious to see where the Wi-Fi eventually it fixes all of the physical and emotional stuff, but we'll figure that out later. But like he used Braxton the issues I had with seeking friendships and friends. He used Lou to fix my relationship with God as the Father.
Yes.
And here's another thing. So he's a widower as well as my mom. Or his late wife Sydney passed away from stage 4 cancer. Like I think 4 or 5 years ago now, and he was a widower with 2 children. Right. And just the way everything worked out and my mom and him had a meeting, it was just miraculous, like a divine appointment. And where the devil took away my dad, God gave me, now I have an earthly father and a heavenly father that I'm in love with. Right. And I have a great relationship with both of them. And where the devil took away my youngest sister, he gave me a youngest sister and a youngest brother, you know? So now I have 2 even younger siblings now, you know, that one's 11 and the other one's 13. So there's just so many ways he's restored it. But through this walk in relationship with God, it helped my relationship with all of my siblings and my mom and my stepdad a lot, because this might sound weird, but part of it almost felt like it was us 3 and Jesus as our own spiritual stronghold against the enemy infecting our family.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because the 3 of us are pursuing Jesus and pursuing God, even though there's still those lapses in relationship with God amongst my siblings and amongst other people trying to enter a family. Us 3, we're constantly like, yeah, man, let's pray. You know, some of us are having fun, like, hey, let's pray. And through that, God has helped the entire family grow through TCAR and through God. The relationship between Lou and all the kids and mom and all the kids are amazing, you know, and just relationally everything's so much better because there's no fear of abandonment or loss for love. Because
perfect love drives out fear.
Absolutely. And
now there's nowhere to find perfect love except in the love of Christ. That's it.
Absolutely. Because it's love out of overflow.
Yes.
I'm pouring out, you have more and my cup is empty. But now it's just an overflow of love. My cup is so full I can't hold on to it.
That's it.
Everything's just so much better. And that's 100% because of God.
So the Norway trip, you said that's also another 3-month process. So you go through the first 3 months. You go through the first 3-month process of the servant training leadership training
school.
Right. And then you go on mission, and that's where the Norway trip comes in.
So the bases are global. So the discipleship training school is in Norway. So
okay.
So it cost $8,760 total for the whole thing, right?
Where are you now in your fundraising?
So far, excluding ticket costs for flights and everything, we're at $3,150. But he's gonna provide a way. I know it will, but I'm trying to do my part. You know, I'm trying to work and make sure I can save up money to get it, and I'm trying to. And that's why I keep posting stuff, because the only thing I can do other than work is to let the word out and see where God takes it. You know,
that's it.
But so tell everybody where they can go to give if they want to give to your to your mission project, to your
it's at wise.com. Let me pull it up. There's a link that we set up for it, actually. Omnia Trauma Healing. If you go to omniatraumahealing.com, that's my mom's LLC. She actually made her own trauma treatment send
Is that link on Facebook?
Yes, it is.
So that's where we went to when we gave?
Yes.
Okay.
And then
I can copy that in the description.
So all of every post I make, I leave a link to it just in case people want it. But it goes to a separate thing called donatestripe.com, which is through Omnia Trauma Healing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a tax-deductible donation. You can use it however you'd like. And that's just something we have set up now so we can make sure that 100% of, or as much of the proceeds as possible, goes straight into funding the trip rather than just, getting, tons of money taken out and taxed out for using permission to use the donation website. Yeah.
So listen, everybody, this is a Gold Star child here. This is a Gold Star dependent whose father was killed in active duty. So I know it's right here at Christmas time. This will be dropping. Everybody will be listening to this. I think it'll be December 30th is Monday. And he's getting ready to leave. When are you supposed to leave? January 8th, 6th, 8th?
Or 8th.
So we need to pick it up, man. We need y'all's help. We need y'all to help us get him to where he needs to be with his goal of $8,000 worth. So we need to come together.
So I did the math. We're about halfway there, but for the actual lecture phase, for the first portion of it, I only need like $1,000.
We can do it. Come on, people. We can do $1,000. Come on now.
So I can actually buy the tickets to leave to go to Norway. For me to buy the actual flight tickets and secure my position in the lecture phase, so I can do the schooling. It's like $1,500 total, and then the rest of the money I'll continue to fundraise while I'm there, and then I'll get support letters out. But that's the one that we need done for sure by December 8th.
So I'm going to tell you people something. Richie, y'all have heard me talk about Richie at times. And Richie's not one to get he's not one to get wrapped up in religiosity or Christian things, or, he just doesn't do that right now. So for Richie to send me this link, Austyn's link, tells me all I need to know. And there's only so much that the JTAC or TACP community can do. I mean, they're only so big. They're not a huge community in the Air Force. So we need your help. And it's not about one person doing $1,000. I mean, we've got, we have hundreds of, we've got 1,200 subscribers on here.
That's right.
So, and we average anywhere from 50 to over 1,000 views on our episodes. So come on. We just got to do this. So Austyn, it truly has been a pleasure having you on, and you've got my contact information. If it's okay, I'll share that with Todd.
Absolutely.
He can get you linked up with the GroupMe guys, and there's a bunch of us on here. You're not going to know their names. One of them is a pastor that I graduated high school with him. He lives in Iowa. Superman of God. I mean, he'd talk to you anytime you need to. We've got connections pretty much all over the continental United States.
Yes.
Somewhere or another, we can get you hooked up between West Virginia, Iowa, Colorado, Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee. We'll get you hooked up with somebody if you need it.
Sure.
The community, man, I'm tickled to death. And please go on there and support Austyn. By the way, Austyn, stand up real quick. I want everybody to see your shirt.
Yeah. Hold on.
So that's you can get these shirts and hats at sixandarmory.com. Brian Robinson's helping us out there.
That's right.
He's helping Chad out, man. Brian is awesome. The way he does that, it's a ministry to him. And all the proceeds from all the hat sales go to. All the proceeds, 100% of the hat sales goes to One Kingdom Missions at Whites Ferry Road Church in West Monroe, Louisiana. We're not doing this to get rich, I mean, if just listen, go help this young man. Also, please go to forerunnerproductions.com, forerunnerproductions.locals.com to check out what Chad's got going on. He's got some big news, Todd, coming out. I can tell you about it after we get off of here. He's 98% sure this is going to happen, and he's excited. He and Nigel both, so I'm tickled to death for him.
Excellent.
And they're out in North Hollywood. Don't hold that against him. He's a Christian living in that crazy place out there.
Hey, we're told to take Jesus to the to every corner of the world. So
Yeah,
they
you're
need
right.
Jesus just as much there.
Yeah, amen, bro. Hey, what's my T-shirt going to say? Jesus died for them too.
That's right.
So, hey, listen, everybody. Thanks again for joining and being with us. We've kept you all almost 2 hours again. Austyn, again, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Both of you guys hang out here on the back side, and if I can get us out of here. Anyway, listen, we got some great stuff coming up next year, and we're really, really excited about it. So, anyway, we love you guys, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.